Good morning. This is VirtualPBX admin training. Just giving a few minutes here to make sure everything is streaming properly. And once I know that, we can get started here. All right. The training lasts about an hour and a half or so. We do record it, so you can always come back later and finish watching if you have other things to get to. Feel free to make use of the YouTube chat feature to ask any questions about features as I go over them. If you look in the show notes, you'll see some links to some other videos that we have. The probably most important one these days is the Business SMS webinar series. That's every 2 weeks, and the next one is actually this coming Thursday. I'm just covering various portions of the making use of our virtual text feature and the issues that come up with the registration process. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and get started. Here you see our Dash login page. You can always get there by going to dash.virtualpbx.com. And to get logged in, we need 3 pieces of information. The first being your email address, which should be in all lowercase letters, basically the email address you used to sign up with us, or what your admin used to create your user. Your password, which is case sensitive, and then your account name, which typically is your company name. Right? Now, if for some reason you don't have this information or what you have is not working, down here at the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, you can click on the Forgot My Info link. Copy that just in case, but here, we'll click on that. So here, we still need your email address, right? That's your unique identifier. And then in the following 2 fields, we only need one of them filled out. So we need either the account name or the phone number. We don't need both. Click on Reset Password. That will create an email, and that gets sent to you. Right? And it has a link there that takes you to your user account page. That allows you to change your password. It will log you back out, and then you'll log back in again. And then you can enter in that new password. And then you also have the option here to click on Remember Me. And then we'll get signed in. Now, I'm signing into a test account that I've logged into previously. So by default, it's going to send me to my dashboard page. If this is your first time logging in, the system will actually send you to your user account page, and the Dash wizard will pop up. Now, you can always get back to your user account page by clicking up on your name at the top right of the screen, towards the top right of the screen, or right of center. If we click here, and you see here, I'm on my user account page. It's basically a huge pop-up. So here, for instance, if you click Edit Across from Password, this is where you would change your own password. Now, as a system admin, you can get to these areas on the left, right? So you got the account level settings. Typically, what's changed here is the time zone for the account. If for some reason you need to change the account name, you actually need to contact our billing team because they have to make sure a bunch of things are updated. Up here on the left also is add-ons. This is a new feature, but basically this allows you to enable specific features that you want to add to your account. Right now, the only one of those is the text forward feature. Then you can get to the billing portal in terms of updating credit card information, and then the option to cancel the account. Once you're done here, click on the little close box here towards the top right, take you back to the dashboard page. Again, that first time logging in, the wizard is popping up telling you what certain things are. Those pop-ups will also come up on the user tab and the groups tab, which we'll be getting to next after we finish here on the dashboard page. Along top here, so you can click on your name at any time, get back to that user account page. To the right, most of you will have this D&D toggle like I do here, right? D&D stands for Do Not Disturb. If I click on it, it turns it white after it updates. And now I'm not receiving calls. And then I click on it again, and now I can receive calls. All right, little phone icon here. This opens up the web phone app. Basically, it opens up a new tab in your browser, takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. That does require a login, right? And it uses your Dash login information to get into the web phone. And then you can use Chrome or Firefox to make calls from your computer. Web phone is a VoIP device. That's something that's referred to in your various plans. And it should only show up after you've added a web phone to your user as a device. A little chat bubble here. This opens up the virtual text app, right? So it opens up a new tab, takes you to virtualtext.app. Log in, it has its own login, but then that allows you to text to and from your phone numbers that you have enabled with the virtual text feature. Little question mark icon here. This opens up the chat to chat with one of our support team members, right? So they can help you with setting up a guide. The 3 horizontal line icon or the menu icon, this gets to other Dash features. The majority of our training will be here in the dashboard. And then we'll touch on some of these others. Some of these others actually, I'll have to refer to the links in the show notes. A little arrow here to the right, logout icon. Over here on the left, we have I'm currently on the dashboard. That's why it's highlighted. But down here along the left-hand side, these are other Dash features. Most of them are included. However, auto attendance is a plan-specific feature. And text forward would have to be enabled. In fact, we can go ahead, we go back here. I go to add-ons. Oh, okay, interesting. Then here in the center, total users. I only have 3 users on this account currently. Generally speaking, most of our plans, the more users you add, the more your bill will increase. Then I have a devices section here broken down. I have 6 total devices. A little pie chart here. First, I have cell phones, right? So your Dash account can send calls to a cell phone number or a landline number. Now, something to keep in mind is when we send a call out to, say, a cell phone number, right? The cell phone rings, you'll answer it. But once you pick up that call, you can't transfer that caller to someone else, right? So if they need to speak to your coworker, Bob, you can't transfer them, right? You'd have to take a message and have Bob call them back, or the caller would have to call back in and get to Bob's extension. One of the ways around that would be to use a cell phone app. Right? So the cell phone bucket here, this includes VirtualPBX cell phone apps or third-party cell phones. But because those are VoIP devices, you could then transfer. And that typically using the transfer button or soft key on the application itself. SIP phone, this is a piece of hardware, right? It's a physical device, sits on your desk, connects via an Ethernet cable, typically, to make and receive calls. Right? We have several manufacturers that we support for what's referred to as auto provisioning. So then you can get up and running relatively quickly. Down here, I have web phone, which I have one of, which is why it has a small piece of the pie chart. Again, that's that Chrome or Firefox device. Unregistered devices, I currently have 0, which is a good thing. This typically refers to any device I have turned off on the devices tab or disabled. Then I have total numbers. I have 10 total phone numbers on the account, and then a couple of breakdowns here. The first is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Right? Assigned numbers means you're using it. Right? You can dial that number and expect to either speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or be sending a fax. Spare number counts towards your allotment of phone numbers, but you're currently not using it. Whether that's because you're about to expand to a new market, or you took a promotion, a phone number that's assigned to a particular promotion, and you said, okay, that promotion's over, let's take that number out of service. Next breakdown is the US toll-free versus USDID. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So if you have a number in San Jose, California, USDID. Same as if you had one in Dallas, Texas. You can have international phone numbers on your account if you wish. You'd want to email our porting team. That's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They'll let you know if we can get a number in that particular area and if there are any additional requirements. Right? And those requirements come from the country in question. Conference bridges, I currently have 0, which means I don't have any user enabled to host or moderate a conference, and we'll change that now as we go through this. Towards top right, I have 2 main numbers, these 512 numbers. They behave the same way, right? They're going to the same location in my system. They're going to have the same main greeting, right? They'll have the same menu options as well. Conference number, I currently have 1, but you can have multiple if you want. They all go to the same conference room numbers. This is the phone number everyone dials, right? So whether they're your staff members, your clients, or your vendors, they all dial this number to join a conference room. The fax box number, this is your inbound fax number. You can have 1 main fax box number. You can set it up, the fax box itself, to say, who's getting the fax notifications. It's an email with a PDF attachment, as well as setting up who's allowed to have outbound permissions to send faxes out. Generally speaking, designed to put your company's email domain there so that anyone at the company can fax out. And here we got your company directories. There's 2 links here. One's a CSV and the other is for softphone. The CSV is just that. It's a CSV file that you use in a spreadsheet program. It's going to have your staff members, their names, their extensions, and their primary devices. The softphone is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop softphone application, right? So if you're using our softphone app on a Windows or Mac PC, then you can download this file and upload it to the softphone app on your computer. This will allow you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX softphones via your softphone app itself, right? So if all your staff only uses a VirtualPBX softphone as their only device, you can see who's on a call and who's not. Well, now, if you have people with multiple devices, right? So let's say my coworker Mike took a call on his cell phone. I'm not going to be able to see that, right? So I'd call him, and then he said, "Hey, I'm on the line. Call me back," sort of thing. All right, VirtualPBX Store. There's a link here that opens up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you can order things like a VoIP phone. And the account realm. Every account has its own account realm. This is used in a couple things. One is used for third-party soft phones, right? When you create a third-party soft phone on your account, you get 3 pieces of information. One of those is the account realm, and those pieces of information are what you need to program or provision that soft phone app. The other thing it's used for is outbound faxing. So once you've set up your fax box with your company email domain, then you don't even have to log into your Dash account as long as you know the proper format, right? You just create an email like you normally do. In the 2 fields, the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, and then the @ symbol, then your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file and click send, right? The system doesn't look at the subject line. It doesn't look at the body of the email. It's only going to send 1 attachment, so make sure you don't have any signature files associated with your email, just the PDF or TIFF file you want to be transmitted. If you want a fax cover sheet, you actually have to include that as part of your attachment. Up here towards the top, we have caller ID. If I click on this, it expands out. So this pull down allows you to see your main numbers, right? In this case, I only have the 2, and the pull down is not working. But whichever number you select, that becomes your default number for like your VoIP phones when they make an outbound call. And a couple other features, which we'll touch on. Down here, you have the company caller ID name or CNAME. In the box to the right, you can include up to 15 characters. That includes spaces and special characters. This is what we associate with your phone number as part of your outbound caller ID. This is optional. You don't have to do this. Then the system wants you to enter the company emergency information, or E911. It wants a North American address. If you have a Canadian address, just for zip code is where you put your postal code. And for state, you put your 2-character province code. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, if you entered information in the CNAME field, right, customer caller ID name, once you click Save Changes, that information gets transmitted out to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them up to 3 business days to update their databases. Now, even with that said, when you make an outbound call from your VoIP phones, right, your call goes through several carriers before it reaches its destination. If any one of those carriers between us and that destination does not support the CNAME feature, the CNAME feature doesn't make it to the destination. More important than that is that destination carrier, right, that last carrier, they get final say about what shows up on the phones on their network. They have 3 options, typically speaking. The first is they see the information we send, they say, great, they pass it on, right? That makes everybody happy, generally speaking. Second option is they can decide, they see the information and say, we're not going to use your information, but we're going to take that number, look up our own databases, and use what we have there for the caller ID name and send that information through. The third option is they see that information, they say, we're passing that phone number through, but nothing else. That last option is what most cell phone carriers default to. Now, in some cases, CNAME information can get through to cell phone users, but that's usually because that cell phone user individually decided to pay for that feature with the cell phone carrier. Like my carrier wanted to charge me $10 a month for that feature. I know other carriers are in that $5 to $10 range, typically speaking. Hold music. So on Dash, hold music for this feature is defined as after a call has come into a system, reach one of your staff members on their VoIP phone, right? They've picked up the call, and then they press hold on their VoIP phone. Once they press hold, then they'll hear whatever file you have selected here. Now, you can upload your own files. The system will play back .wav and .mp3 files. You want to make sure it's under up to 1 megabyte in file size. Sometimes you can upload files larger than that, but it's been hit or miss, at least in my experience. So try to keep it at or below 1 megabyte. If you already have files, this pull down here will let you select a file that's already on the system. And generally, I recommend recording in mono, not in stereo, so that way you can get a little bit more duration of the file versus in stereo, right? Stereo has 2 channels, so it takes up more data space, whereas if mono, be smaller. Now, ours is part of main number, which we'll get to after we've created, or I've shown you how to create users and groups, because part of main number is setting up where the calls route that come into the main number, but you need those destinations first. So over here on the left, we're clicking on the users tab, little person at a desk. So here you see your users. The people with the blue suit icon, these are your system admins, right? So they can do all the stuff we're talking about. The little gray person icon here, standard user. They have very limited access. Up here at the top, you click on add user. And you basically fill out the form, right? So first name and last name, the system wants some sort of text. I have literally seen people put a and then period in these 2 fields. The email address used for login, right? That needs to be unique for each user, right? You can't use an email address for several staff people. This email address is what the system uses to communicate to your staff member, like voicemail notifications or password resets, right? That's the email address it's going to use by default. Password field, you need to create password for them. And then their main extension number. Now the system started with extension 1000, so it's saying my next available is 1003. You can change this to whatever you want. So like if I'm creating, let's say, new department, I can say, nope, you guys are starting off at extension 5000. Okay, by default, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for the user. That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So like if you create the user, you added a VoIP phone and it gets registered, they can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98, and then click call. That will log them directly into the voicemail box that was created with the user. At that point, the system will prompt the user to record or create their voicemail box PIN number, record their name, and then record their voicemail box greeting, right? And then they're basically all set up. Here's your option to include that user in the user directory, which is Recording the name for the voicemail box is necessary to show up in the user directory when people call in. Here's your option. Oh, and you can change that at any time. This is your send emails to an alternate address. So let's say the email address used for login is not something that the staff member or you do not want to receive, like the voicemail notifications or password resets. Just click a box here and enter that different email address in the field, and then click on save. And you can change that later. And then lastly, this last one here, send credentials to the user. Typically, I do recommend putting that check mark there. If I can click there, right? And so that way, once you click on create user, right, this person gets an email that's for the email address used for login, saying, hey, welcome to VirtualPBX, or welcome to your Dash account, I believe. Gives them their username, their password, and some general information. If you need to add multiple people, create user and add another is the button to press. Once you've created a user, you can click on their name, right? So you can change their name if you need to. Here's your option to change their credentials, right? So if you need to change their email address, you can do so up here. You can change their password. You also have the option here just to send them the password reset. So if you want them to change the password to something they'll remember. And then when you're done, click on Save Changes and Save Changes here. Here's your option to change the voicemail PIN number. That's a temporary change, and just enter 4 digits. Here's the option to send to an alternate email address. Here's the option to include or not include in the user directory. Over here to the right, little person icon. This pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. So if you're the only user, please don't change yourself from an admin to a user. Little clock icon here. This allows you to change the time zone for this user, so that way their voicemail timestamps are correct. Little flag icon. This pull down allows you to change the display language for these web pages for that staff member. It's English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout. The default is 20 seconds. Plenty of time for sending calls to a white phone or a landline. If you have a staff member who's only using a cell phone, you'd probably want to pump this up to like 30 seconds, maybe even up to 45. It simply takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than to, say, a landline. Right? They have to find you first. All right. Then you have the extension number box, right? You needed to create that main extension number when you created the user. If you just signed up with us and you go to your users page, you'll see that you don't have an extension number assigned to you yet. So you'd want to click on your extension number box and give yourself an extension number. This will allow you to also enable your voicemail on that first user. The reason we don't assign you an extension number is we don't know what numbering system you want to use for your extension numbers. But you can also add an additional extension number. So if you want people to have multiple extension numbers, just click there and enter in the additional extension number and then save changes. Users can have their own phone numbers. Now, one thing to know is when you add a phone number to a user or to a group, or basically anywhere that's not a main number or one under the auto attendance, the phone numbers you add anywhere else, right? So to user, group, a queue, etc., those phone numbers work 24/7, right? They don't have scheduled hours. You have 2 options here of adding from spare or by numbers, right? Adding from spare means you're basically reusing a number or assigning it for the first time, right? You just hadn't gotten around to it. So you would just click on a box here in front of the number, click on add selected, and then you would click on save changes. And then you see the number showing up there. If you choose by new, you have an option of local and toll-free. Toll-free, pretty straightforward. You choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with, click on search. And then here you'll see a list of available numbers. One thing to keep in mind is that this list is dynamic. So you're technically competing with people in real time. So let's say I like this first number, I click add. That has not done anything to that number, right? It doesn't reserve it for me or anything. So let's say I added the number and then my boss comes in and said, hey, meeting, right? So I have to pick up what I'm doing or stop what I'm doing and join the meeting. Meetings longer than they probably should be sometimes. I come back and I try to click buy numbers. I can get an error message because someone else could have finished buying this number while I was at that meeting. But otherwise, you just click buy numbers normally. And you can add multiple numbers at the same time, right? If you need to at that location. And then the system says, yes, that number was truly available, and let me add it here. For local numbers, you need to know the area code you want to work with. So let's say we do 310, which is NLA. Now, on any area code, and this includes toll-frees, prefixes, right? You can get this message saying that area code is exhausted, meaning there's no readily available numbers that we can acquire. In the case of an area like 310, I would say, use your favorite search engine and do a search for 310 area code overlay. And then go back to search. And you can do a search for that other area code, and you see that there will be plenty. Then you click add by number, and now you add the number to the user. Now, in most cases, I don't know why you would have 3 numbers for one user. It's possible, I'm sure. But I'll unassign those other 2 numbers and then leave the 1 number there. All right. Next, we have devices. Right. Currently, I have none. Again, I have add from spare or new device. Right. Add from spare is where you would reuse a device. So, for instance, this is a physical phone here. And then I click on the box and then select device, click save changes. And now Dante has a VoIP phone, which is not currently registered. For new devices, right, it starts off with SIP phone, cell phone, etc. So like if I choose SIP phone, these are the manufacturers that we support for that auto provisioning I mentioned earlier. If you click on them, you'll see the available models. All right, so some like A-Link have a ton. If I go to Obahai, I have much less to choose from. Grandstream has some. Cisco has some. But basically, you find the make and model of the phone you want to work with. Then you give it a name, right? Like Bob's phone, or in this case, Dante's phone, right? Or even the location, right? Break room phone. I recommend against using things like phone A or phone 1, because maybe 6 months from now, you may not know where did that phone really go in terms of when you look it up in a list. The MAC address, this is unique to each device. Typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, you can check under the status section or the basic settings. It should be listed in one of those 2. You just enter that information here, and then you click on create device. Now, once you click on create device and click on save changes, right, you'd want to come back and click on that device. Under advanced, go to miscellaneous, and where it says allow reprovision, click unlock, and then save changes. Now, in terms of our dashboard, in terms of this dashboard, I should say, you're done, right? There's nothing else you can really do at this point. However, you need to log into that phone's web user interface. That's typically done by getting the IP address of the phone and putting that IP address in your browser on a computer that's on the same network as that phone. And then you log into the phone. And then you need to go, basically you need to give the phone a URL to say, hey, go here, get your config file. Now, for the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages, and you want to look for the document called auto provisioning. It's going to have screenshots for these various manufacturers in terms of where to look and where to go, as well as a proper syntax for that URL. And I think in most cases, at least a couple settings to double check. Right? Once you do all of that, basically you tell the phone, confirm or save, update, and then auto provision. The phone should reboot a couple times. And then after that, it should turn up as a green device. So next up, we have cell phone. And this will apply also to landlines. Right? You still give it a name. Right? So David's phone. Right? And then here you type in the number. Now, when typing a number, it's the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number, right? No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And then you click on create device, and then you click on save changes. So here, we'll click on this cell phone here. So this is what it should look like, right? So you got my name, and then +1 area code and number. Now, I'm gonna go to advanced options here. This is the default setup for a cell phone or landline after it's been added to the account. What happens is call comes in, gets sent to this cell phone number, right? Cell phone number rings, and when you pick up, the first thing you'll hear is the system saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. Right? When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you are there, yes, you want to take this call. Right? So it's a way when you pick up to know, oh, this is a work call. Now, this is fine if it's an actual person answering the call. If, however, let's say you've contracted out with an automated answering service to handle your after-hours calls. They give you a phone number and say, hey, just send calls to this phone number and we'll take care of it, right? So in that case, you'd come to your Dash account, you'd add that device as either a cell phone or a landline, right? You would, say, after hours pickup or whatever, right? You get put in +1 area code and the phone number they gave you. But you'd want to come here and put a check mark in front of this top feature here, which is allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So when you send a call to an automated answering service, right, that automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1. In fact, it probably doesn't have the ability to. So when you put a check mark here in front of allow use of cell phone voicemail, what you're telling the system is that when it hears a pickup tone, to connect the call. Right? So we send the call to the automated answering service, it picks up, we hear that pickup tone, and we connect the call. Now, something to be aware of is this is actually going to a cell phone, and you have this option checked. Then what can happen is calls get sent to your cell phone, right? If your cell phone voicemail picks up, that's still a pickup tone. So we connect the call, right? So that means that inbound caller can end up on your cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people do not. Another thing that comes up here is this one here, is keep original caller ID. So what this means is, say customer Mary calls into the system, gets to my cell phone. On my cell phone, I see customer Mary's phone number. If I don't recognize the number, I don't typically answer my cell phone, probably because I've had too many political calls or robo-dialers call me over the years. So I'm like, yeah, I don't need to hear that. Now, the downside of that obviously is you might miss a sales call, right? Or a customer call that you would need to take instead of have to play phone tag all the time. So what you would want to do is uncheck this option here. And then click on save and save changes. What that means is when customer Mary calls, if we go back here to the dashboard, the phone number you see is this one that you've selected up here. So hopefully you would recognize your company number. And then you'd say, oh, this is a work call. Let me pick up. Oh, actually, let's go down to here. So next up is a soft phone. So whenever you add a soft phone or web phone to the account, you're going to get this first warning message. It's basically saying, hey, wireless VoIP technology, if you dial 911 when you're not at your home location, that might cause a problem for emergency services because they might go to the wrong address. I.e., if you're walking around or away from your normal location, don't dial 911 from your soft phone or web phone. I click close, and then we get this big box. Now, by default, the system is creating a third-party soft phone. That means you're using a soft phone app from someone other than from VirtualPBX. Right? And there's a ton of them out there in the world. All right. And so in that case, if you're going to use, let's say, XLite from Counterpath, right, you'd still give it a name. You'd copy and paste the username. Click on the SIP password box, so that way you can copy and paste that into your soft phone app. and then here's your account name again. Right? Those are the three pieces of information that you would need to program or provision that third-party soft phone. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, then down here, right, just below where it says view configuration guide, there's a toggle. It's grayed out, kind of hard to see, but it says use third-party application. If you click where it says use third-party application, it flips it. So now it says use VirtualPBX application. That SIP information goes away. You still give it a device name. You click on create device. Guess I should give it a name. Follow my own instructions. And then you would click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, Dante here gets an email. It says your VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. Here's your login information. Here's download links. All right, so they download the app to whatever device they're going to use it on, use their login information. They can then make and receive calls from that app. One thing to know, if you're going to make use of the VirtualPBX soft phone app and you want to add it to your account, you can only do that here on the users page. You've noticed probably on the left, there's a devices tab. If you add a soft phone on the devices tab, you don't have the option to change it to say use VirtualPBX application. It only allows you to add a third-party soft phone on the devices tab. And then the web phone, again, gives you that warning message. So the web phone, hopefully I mentioned this earlier, right? When you go to webphone.virtualpbx.net on Chrome or Firefox, it has a login page. It uses your -user login information. So that's why you want to add it to a user. All right, so you just click on, give it a name, click on create device, and click on save changes. And then Dante can log in to the web phone. All right, user features. First up, caller ID number. Typically designed for people for users that have their own phone number. Right? You click to turn it on. You select their phone number. You click on save changes. So what this does is that after I click save changes, whenever I make an outbound call from my VoIP phone, my outbound caller ID becomes the 775 number instead of the 521 number that I have set up under the main number. This is something you might do for like your salespeople. So that way, when they make calls out, that the people, when they call back in, they go right to the correct salesperson. Virtual text. This is a relatively new feature. If you don't see this as a feature on your account, like say you just signed up for this with us, you need to reach out to our account services team. There's some things they need to go over with you regarding virtual text and, as importantly, SMS registration. But once it's here, you click up here to enable. Select the phone number on their account, whether it's a main number or the user's number, and then you click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, the user gets an email welcoming them to Virtual Text. Virtual Text has its own login information. So it's possible your staff members can have 3 pieces of information or 3 pieces of login information from VirtualPBX, right? One for their Dash login, second one for their soft phone app, if they're making use of our app, and then a third one for Virtual Text. Now, Virtual Text allows you to share numbers among staff members, and this then, that way you can multiple people, keep track of text conversations between you and your customers. Let's say for your main number, for example. Voicemail. I think I need new glasses. So this is a typical setup here, right? It's enabled, and you have attached voicemails to email. Basically, what that means is if a voicemail message is left, I get an email saying, here, you have a new voicemail. Here's the date, the time, phone numbers involved, the extension number, and then there's an MP3 attachment. All right, so I can just click on that on my computer, for instance, and listen to it directly from my computer. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. By default, you have 3 ways to listen to messages, but only 2 ways to manage your messages, right? So one of those ways to listen is via email. However, you can't manage it via email. So in this default setup, there's 2 other ways to listen to voicemails. first one, call into my system. When I call in to my main number, right? I can, from my VoIP phone, I don't even have to call my main number, right? I can just dial *98. But let's say I'm calling from, let's say I'm on the road, I don't have a cell phone app, but I have my cell phone. I can call to the main number, and when I hear that main greeting play, I hit *97. The system says, oh, then prompts me for my voicemail box number and then my PIN number. Then I can listen to my messages over the phone, and you have the option to delete those messages. The other way is logging into your dashboard here. Close this out. And you have this option here for the user portal. I don't know if you can really see it. It's on towards the bottom right of the pull down. The user portal will default to your voicemail tab. By the way, for your standard staff members, if they're not assigned to a queue, the user portal is their only option. So that's where they'll be defaulted to. But you'll be on the voicemail tab, so you can listen to your messages, you can download them, and you can delete them. Follow me feature. This is for users with multiple devices, generally speaking. You click to enable, and then you need to tell the system which devices you want calls to ring to. Right? So by default, all devices are set to do not ring. So you just uncheck the boxes, and now they have a little green bar. You can click and drag to extend the ring time. This box up here, right, along the top are timestamps. It defaults to 120 seconds. You can change that to 60. You can also click distribute. So now you equalize out over time. I can click and drag so I can change the order, right? So now it's going to hit this VoIP phone first, or this web phone, and then my cell phone. After you make any changes, click on Save Changes. Fax box, you could decide to have users have, or to let users have their own fax box if you want to. When you click Enable, you have this first pull down. You can use a spare number, you can buy a new number, or you can assign a second extension number. I recommend making use of a phone number because that means that user can send and receive faxes. If you assign a new extension number, that person can only ever receive faxes, and potentially you're limiting who can send them faxes. Right, so like at least the electronic fax services I've looked at, you don't have the option to include an extension number to the phone number you're faxing to, right? So that means that's a whole swath of people who can't send a fax to this one user of yours. Whereas if you select the phone number, then it doesn't matter. But once you've selected that option, you click on Save Changes, and now this person has their own fax box, which means they'll get an email every time they get a fax that comes in. They can send out from their own fax box. Conference Bridge. So first up, you have to decide if you want to enable it. And then this tells you the conference room number. It gives you the meeting room number, which is their extension number. And then you just need to create a PIN number for them. I usually just, say make it 4 digits. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, your staff members that you enable the Conference Bridge feature on, they'll be able to change that password under the user portal. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own, either directly on their VoIP phone or via the user portal. Failover mode, that's something you have to set up as an admin. And that's in an instance where if their VoIP device goes unregistered and a call comes into that user, with failover mode, you can automatically have the system call, forward the calls to, say, their cell phone number. Now, in my user's case, I have 2 devices, right? I already have a cell phone and a web phone. So there's no need for me to set up forwarding, because it's by default, it's going to hit my cell phone number eventually anyway. However, here for Dante, right, he only has the VoIP phone. So it would make more sense that I would do at least failover mode for him. I would choose desk phone or cell phone, and then put +1 area code and phone number. Oops. and then save changes. So now if, like right now, his VoIP phone is unregistered. So if he gets a call, the system will automatically forward to that phone number I put in the call forwarding. Customize call recording. Your system allows you to record your calls. First, you click to enable, and then you need to decide what kind of calls you're going to record. Right. So inbound internal coworker call. Right. So let's say Dante called me. Inbound external. Right. Customer Mary called me. Right. Outbound internal means I called Dante back. And then outbound external, I called customer Mary. So typically we see something like this where we have the external calls being recorded or all of them being recorded, most common setups. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, your account includes some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you just signed up for us, please check the pricing page. It should have it there under the details. If you're on an older plan, you'd want to talk to our account services team, and they can let you know how much storage is included and what the overages are. If you have heavy call volume and you intend to record every call, you'd also want to talk to our account services team about AWS integration. That allows you to basically set up your Dash account to link to Amazon Web Services, and then you can have your call recordings stored with AWS, right? Which, especially for high volumes, is going to be much cheaper than with us. Music on hold, you can just decide to have your users have their own hold music if you want to. Upload .wave.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte, or select a file that's already on the account. Right. So for instance, if you want your sales staff to have hold music that talks about current promotions or specials being run, you can do that, while the rest of your staff has the default. Do not disturb. Basically, if you enable it, that means this user is not getting calls. And hot desking. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. When you click enable, create a hot desk ID. I usually say just make it their extension number, and then save changes. So for instance, I come into the office on Tuesdays. I sit down at desk number 2. I pick up the VoIP phone that's at desk number 2. I hit *11. Right, that turns on hot desking on that phone. The system will prompt me to enter my hot desk ID, and then tell me calls will now be sent to this device. End my shift, pick up the phone, *12. Right, turns off hot desking. Next time I come into the office, same thing. Pick up the phone, *11, enter hot desk ID. Calls are going to come to me at whatever desk I'm sitting at. Let's see, I just want to make sure I didn't forget. Oh, one thing I should point out for the follow me feature, if this user is assigned to a group, which we're about to get to, calls from the group ignore the follow me feature. All right, so basically, if I get a call from the Ring group, both of my devices ring at the same time. So let's go to groups. So groups, sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups, right? Basically departments. So you can have calls go to multiple people, whether at the same time or in order. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You need to give it a name. You need to give it an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group, and then click on Create Group. So once a group is created, you can click on its name. Right, so you can always change the name at any time. And then you've got group call attempts, little arrows here to the far right, so you can increase or decrease it as necessary. This is how many times the system will offer calls to the group members. And then you can click on Save Changes, or if you need to delete a group, you can delete a group here on the right, or left, sorry. I think I need more caffeine. Next up, we have the members box for the group. You can click on that. You see the staff members who are assigned to the group and the ring order. So right now, for the most part, all 3 people get offered the call at the same time, although David here has a slightly longer ring time. But basically, for the most part, whoever gets the call first, right, whoever answers it gets the call. Now, in this kind of scenario, let's say if I just equalize them all out here, what can happen is, right, all 3 of our phones are ringing. if Dante picks up and I pick up at the same time, one of us, right, the system has to decide who's getting the call, right? Because we both can't take the same call. So let's say Dante gets it. I'm going to hear dead air, right? I'm going to pick up, say my greeting, and then there's no one there. Now, if I'm in the office, I could probably peek over or hear that Dante's on the call. Like, okay, he got the call. Not a big deal. But a lot of people are working remotely. You might get reports as an admin from your staff member saying, hey, I tried to pick up a call. It was dead air. In that instance, you'd have to check in the group or the call logs to see if it went to multiple people at once and to see that it was actually connected. Or like if you use something like Slack or what have you, confirm someone got a call from a particular phone number. Now, along the top here, you've got timestamps, right? 120 seconds. You can take it down to 60 if you want, or extend it. You can also click distribute, right? When you click distribute, that means every call that comes into the group rings in this exact order, right? So David first, Dante, and then Taylor. So even if I'm on a call, right? Call comes in, I pick up, I'm handling a call. A second call comes in, it doesn't skip me. Just because I'm on a call, it still tries to ring my phones, right? So if I have call waiting on my phone, I'm going to hear a beep every now and then. My customer will not. But once it's reached 20 seconds, then it'll start ringing Dante, right? Now, again, if we're both on a call, a third call calls in, they have to wait 40 seconds before Taylor gets rung. So that's why you can click these bars. So that way there's a less hold time for those later callers. Or you would do what the initial setup where everyone is ringing at the same time. Likewise, I can change the order, click distribute if necessary. Down here at the bottom, if I had more users, I could add on those additional users. I can remove people if they're no longer part of this department. Extension numbers, right? Groups have to have an extension number when you create them, but you can add multiple if you need to. Right? Just click on add extension. Groups can have their own phone numbers. Again, this phone number is open 24/7, but same process, right? Either buy new or add from spare. And then we have group features. Actually, let's go to this other group here because it has features enabled. Well, first up is ringback. So when a call comes into the group, right, starts ringing your staff member's phone, that ringing sound gets piped back to the inbound caller. So that's where ringback comes from. You can choose to enable ringback feature, and then you can upload a .wav or .mp3 file to have it play back instead of that ringing sound. And then you click on Save Changes. Next action, when you click to enable, right, if no one is able to pick up the call, where do you want to send the call to? In this case, I'm sending it to a voicemail box. Right, but I can send it back to my main menu. I can send it to a call queue if I'm making use of queues. I can send it to a specific phone. Right, so I can send it to someone's soft phone, for example. I can send it to one of my other groups. I can send it to a specific staff member, and then a particular voicemail box. Excuse me. Allow call forward. This is for if your staff only uses VoIP phones. If you enable this, then they can set up call forwarding so they can send calls to their cell phone. Right? If you have staff with multiple devices, including a cell phone, you don't need to enable this feature. Caller ID prepend. This is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to have either additional text or numbers that show up in front of the caller ID on your staff members' VoIP phones. In this case, right, I would avoid having numbers and letters together, and I would also not have such a long number. Something like that. Now, I usually say one or the other, right? Either have text or a number, don't have both, because that's going to be a very long caller ID display. And then you click on Save Changes. All right, so we have users in place, we have groups in place. So let's go over to main number now. So up top, you have your main company numbers. You can buy new or add spare. You can have multiple main numbers. I didn't actually show this earlier, but on every phone number, you have the little gear option, right? So you can update the caller ID, E911, prepend. Caller ID, right? This allows you to set the outbound CNAME as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAME, right? So that way people's names show up on your staff's phones. E911, each phone number can have its own E911 address, right? So this allows you to have, and this only for this purpose only for if your staff members call 911 from their VoIP phones. So that way you can have the correct address for your staff if they're working remotely. Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. Can have text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. Then you have office hour strategy, right? 24-hour open office, right? You're open 24/7. Otherwise, custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open. Right? Put a check mark in front of the day. Set your hours in 24-hour or military time. So here I'm open 9 to 5. You also have the option here to say, are you closed for lunch? Right? If you do this, put a check mark here, set your lunch hours, and again, that 24-hour or military time. That means your system automatically goes into lunch mode at this time for each day of the week that you're open. Excuse me. Office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. And then over to the right, you have add holiday. You have the option here for single day, date range, or advanced. So single day, they all create their own row, right? You give it a name and you choose, in this case, I'm saying December 25th, and then I would say save changes. All right. If I choose date range, just call it holiday. And I can say January 1, 2. No. Right, and save changes. So now I'm just saying, hey, I'm closed from January 1st to January 5th. Fortunately, the pull downs weren't working right there, but that's what that works. And then advanced would be something for, is that, I don't know. Yeah, these pull downs are not working. But again, it's something where you can, where it's always the same day of the month versus something that changes the date. But then you have incoming call handling. So for my main numbers, right, those 2512 phone numbers, during my open hours, I'm having to go to my virtual receptionist. During my after hours, I'm offering it to my support group first, and then to my virtual receptionist. On holidays, I'm sending them straight to a voicemail. Right, same basic options are available for all 3 times of day. So you can switch it around as you need to. But calls come in going to the virtual receptionist. This is a link, right? You can click on it. It's going to open up a big old box. On the left is your main menu, right? What people can press on their phone to navigate through your phone system. Down here, you click Add Route to create a new row. This pull down allows you to select 0 through 9 plus the star key. This pull down allows you to select destinations. So like I can do that. Up here, again, the pull down is at least more clear. You have the directory, you have your individual users, any queues you may have, your groups, any devices, voicemail boxes. You have media, which means like if you want to play like hours of operation as a menu option, you could do so. Just be aware that once the media file stops playing, the call ends. Over to the right, I have my greetings, and these are my options. First up is text-to-speech, right? Type in a greeting, the system reads it back. It's a computerized or robotic voice. Some people are okay with it, other people not so happy with it. So something to keep in mind. You can enter up to 250 characters, not words. Does not count spaces. This is good for, you're just getting started with us, for instance, or you're a startup company. You're not sure how things are going to actually route yet. You can upload your own file, .wave.mp3, ideally recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You would just find the file, click update, then save and save changes. Oh, hold on. For the text-to-speech reading, totally forgot something major here. it doesn't allow you to change the name of the file. It names it for you, right? In this case, it's going to be my main open hours menu TTS, right? Because I'm in my main hours, right? Main open hours, and I'm using a text-to-speech greeting. So even if I came here and changed it, now I'll have two files called main open hours menu TTS. So if you're going to make use of this, I recommend after you create one, on the left-hand side, we'll get to the greetings tab shortly. Go there and edit the file to make it something that's more easily identifiable, like main greeting 1, for example. Sorry about that. Choose from an existing recording. You can see here I have main open hours menu TTS. This pull down shows all your media files on the account. So main greetings, voicemail greetings, hold music files. You definitely want to have some decent naming or use names that you can recognize easily. Now, you can also record it over the phone. When it says a phone registered to this account, it means a VoIP phone, right? That's a security feature. So that way, some random person can't call into your system and change your main greeting on you. Now, if you want to record over the phone, but you don't want to use a VoIP phone, or you can't, then down here under our settings, go to allow outside recording, turn this to on, then you click on save. Save changes. So now you can call your main number, and then you still need to enter this PIN number. So if you just signed up with this, if you call your main number right off the bat, it's going to tell you that the greeting for this menu has not been recorded yet, and then ask you for the PIN number. Right, so then it walks you through recording it and then saves the file for you. If you have a text-to-speech greeting in place, let's say, because you were just testing it out first, when you call in, you're going to hear that text-to-speech greeting. You can still enter this PIN number, and the system will, go, oh, so they want to change the main greeting, and then walk you through recording a new main greeting. In that scenario, the system doesn't allow you to change the file name. It just uses the existing file name, and you just overwrote the content that was there originally. Now, this PIN number is only specific to my open hours, right? So if I called in on Saturday, try to use this PIN number, I'll get an invalid entry message because I'm only open Monday to Friday. A professional recording, if you click order here, this will open a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, where you can order a professionally done greeting, right? They have many voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have a couple different language options. They bill you directly via, typically via credit card. And then they send you the file via email. So then you would come over here to upload your own file. All right, so now we're on to settings. Number of retries on misdial. This is how many times the inbound caller can make a mistake, right? So right now, that means I have this set to 1. So that means my inbound caller can make 2 attempts total, right? They get the 1 for free, and then they have 1 retry. Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system listens for an additional button press before it assumes the person is done, right? So if this call right now I set to 1, that means the inbound caller has to be entering a multi-digit extension number fairly quickly, right? So if I know my customers tend to enter extension numbers of who they want to reach fairly often, I'd probably want to change this to something like 5, right? Just give them a little bit more time to enter those extension numbers. Allow outside recording, we covered. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, right? And this just means if someone gets to your virtual receptionist and they enter a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call, right? If I turn this off, that means the inbound caller can only press one of these menu options, right? If they enter an extension number, it's treated as an invalid entry. So let's say caller calls in and they keep pressing 555, right? 555. Well, I have extensions turned off, and that's not a valid entry. So after that second attempt, right, because they get 2 total attempts, the system will send the caller to the default action here, right? That's what this one's cut off, but it says default action, which is going to my smart PBX directory, which is dial by name directory. If I don't have a default route, right, default action, and that inbound caller fails after 2 attempts, the system will end the call. It will say, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye. And that comes into the suppress the playing of invalid entry. If I don't want that message to play, I can turn this on, right? So that means you turn on suppressing of the file of that message, which means the message does not play. That makes sense, especially if you do have a default action going to like a particular user or group or etc. It's just a more seamless transition. Any changes you make to your main number, your greetings, or your settings, you need to click Save here, but you also need to click Save Changes back here under Incoming Call Handling, right? You're clicking Save twice. All right, so the after hours, I'm using what's called our live operator answer option, right? I'm giving a group of people, in this case, an opportunity to answer the call. If they're unable to, then the caller goes to the virtual receptionist. This is a pull down, right? So I can select a specific user, call a call queue, any group, or a specific device. You probably don't want to use voicemail boxes. And then the virtual receptionist, this is my after hours virtual receptionist. So it's going to be different, right? I have different menu options. I should have a different greeting in place, right? I can have different settings as well. For my holidays, again, this pull down, I can select anything that's on the account, right? A user, a group, a queue, a media file, a device, etc. Or the last option, right, is here, skip to voicemail. And then I'm choosing the voicemail box I want them to go to. And basically say, hey, calls come in during holidays, send them right to the voicemail box and they can leave a message. Main conference number, you get multiple conference numbers if you want to, right? So you can buy new or add from spare. If you click on custom greeting, opens up a box and you can type in a text-to-speech greeting here. If I put this on disabled, even without that, when people call my main conference number, they get a message saying, welcome to the conference, and then it prompted to enter the conference room number and the PIN number, right? Which is something you or your staff would have to have communicated to the other conference members ahead of time. The main fax box number, you can only have the one. But once you have one in place, you can edit the fax box. And here, right, inbound notification. Basically, every time a fax comes into this account, the email address you put here gets an email saying you have a new fax. Here's the date, the time, phone numbers involved, PDF attachment. The email permissions designed to put in your company's email domain here. And this means anyone who has an email with this domain, right, they can send a fax out from this account, even if they're not a user. Right? They just have to know the account realm at that point. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create secondary attendance. The two most common things that we see are, one is referred to as submenuing, right? So you want to put one for English, two for Spanish. You would create an English and Spanish auto attendant, one for each, a greeting for each of those in the appropriate language, and then the menu options would go to staff members who speak those languages. The other we see like here is for a second business or multiple businesses, right? Those businesses would have their own phone numbers. They'd have their own main greetings. Now you can have the same staff people answer calls for them. That's fine, but it's its own separate business. So like if you have a cleaning business and a dog walking business, you don't have to have separate accounts with us. You can have them on the same account, right? So that ease of billing. Up here at the top, you click on Add New Attendant. You need to give it a name and an extension number. The extension number is not something your customers would ever necessarily make use of, but your staff can then transfer calls to the correct attendant. Right. So for instance, if a call came into me and the caller was speaking, perfect Spanish, and I can only understand a couple of words, I'd have to transfer them to my Spanish auto attendant. Once you create attendant, you click on the name. It defaults to being unavailable in the main menu, right? And that makes sense for a standalone business, right? Saying, hey, it's a separate business. It shouldn't be associated with my menu options. Whereas like the Spanish one here and the English, I put it in main menu. Now, if I go back to my main number, it'll be an option under the route options. After I click add route, that second pull down, these would then show up. I can assign numbers to them, right? Either from spare numbers or by new. I can add additional extension numbers if I need to. And then I click on the little wrench icon under settings. Then you see you have open hours, after hours, and holidays. Right, so these hours match what we set up under the main number. Right, so the open hours, after hours, and holidays all match what we already set up. So if you have one business that's 24/7 and one that's Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, in that instance, you'd want to talk to our account services team to see what your best options are. That could be something that has to be split up in 2 accounts. It could be something that can be done with custom work. But that'll be the best to be able to assess what needs to be done. All right, the devices tab, right, shows your devices. Red, unregistered. We can't send a call to it. Green, we can send a call to it. For your VoIP phones, if you click under the wrench icon here, all right, here you can see the SIP information if you need to. Audio for a physical device, you want G711U or G711A, ideally both. That includes if you're using a third-party soft phone to actually make use of a physical phone. Let's see. Oh, emergency caller ID, right? So you can choose one of your phone numbers that has an address associated with it and select it. And then that way, when it comes to dialing 911, right, whatever address is associated with this phone number is what it gets sent to emergency services. Same with for soft phones. All right, you can set up the emergency caller ID the same way. Up here to where you add new devices. Again, the main caveat is for soft phones, you don't have that option to change it, right? It can only add a third-party soft phone on this page. Greetings tab shows all your media files on the account. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. Upload means it was uploaded. And TTS means it was text-to-speech. And you see here, I have 2 main open hours menu TTS files. So I'd want to listen to them to see which one's the current one and then delete the extra one. And I can do that by clicking on the little play icon here in this column. If for some reason that doesn't play in my browser, then I click on download the file to my device and listen to it on my device's media player. And then little wrench icon. Right. This allows you to change the file name, or you can also delete it. All right, numbers takes you by default to numbers in use. So it shows where your numbers are assigned. You got the little gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or prepend for any number. You can't unassign a number here or assign a number here. It just shows you where they're currently set up. Spare numbers, this shows you the numbers that you're not currently using. So if you want to remove a number from your account, click on the box in front of it. And then you have the option to delete will show up here at the top. You click delete, you confirm the deletion, and then now the numbers are removed. You can buy numbers, right, which would add more spare numbers to your account. Port numbers is if you're moving a phone number from, say, another carrier to VirtualPBX. So say from AT&T to VirtualPBX. You give it a name, choose local toll-free, and then the system asks you to upload a PDF of your most recent bill from the current carrier, so from AT&T. Basically, a long form to fill out where it's asking for company information, name, address. It wants a BTN, which is called billing telephone number. If you're only porting one phone number, that is the BTN. If you're porting a wireless phone number or cell phone number, we're going to need a PIN number. Some of the cell phone carriers call it an account PIN or transfer PIN. That's something you have to get from them directly. Just be aware, if you are porting over a cell phone number, that once the port completes, the cell phone itself will stop working, right? Unless you get another number from your cell phone provider to work with that phone. You'll be given an opportunity to download a blank LOA or letter of agency and then upload a completed and signed LOA. The LOA, the information should match what your company or what your current carrier has on file for a company, right, in terms of company name, address, which is basically the same information you have in the form previous to that. The LOA does need a signature. Now, it can be a digital signature file, that's fine, but like typing your name in twice or printing your name in won't work. That gets rejected every time and delays when the port will complete. In fact, if we see that, we actually send you an email saying, hey, it's not signed. Can you please send us a signed version? In terms of port process, toll-free numbers take about a week, assuming everything is correct. 3 to 5 business days is the official nomenclature there. Local numbers can take, on average, 2 to 3 weeks. I've seen some come in very quickly, like the next business day, others longer. If there's any kind of error, or like we get a rejection notice from the other carrier, we double check to make sure there wasn't a typo on our side, right? Or if there's, like, let's say that we got an address rejection, we double check, like, do we have multiple addresses we can use? Like there's one on the LOA, but a different one on the copy of the bill. We try them both, right? Once we've made sure that there's not an error on our side or we didn't have alternate information we could use, then we let you know saying, hey, we're getting this error. You're going to have to contact your current carrier to find out what the correct information is to port the number out. Voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. If there's an entry in this third column, that means that was a user voicemail box, right? Created when the user was created, right? These other two were manually created. Up here at the top, you can create your own voicemail boxes, right? So for use with your groups or your queues, etc. Give it a name, give it a voicemail box number and a PIN number, and then click on Create Voicemail Box. Click on the wrench here, go to Advanced, start with Greeting Media. You can upload a media file, right, to play as a voicemail greeting if you want to. If you want to record it to the phone, then you need these, right? You need the voicemail box number, and then we need to give this a PIN number. And then save changes. Now you notice I have a temporary field and a media field. If I have something selected in both files, the temporary file plays. Right? In fact, the media file won't play if there's anything selected in the temporary file. Once you put the temporary file to none, then the media file can play. Right? Temporary is designed for the out of office or vacation voicemail message. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes have their own recipient built in, right? The email address used for login, but you can always add additional ones, right? For any voicemail box you create on this page, you want to include at least one recipient. Just type in the email address. If you only need to add one, just enter the one and then click Save Changes. If you need to add multiple after you enter the first one, click on the Add box until you're done and then Save Changes. And then we have options. So once you have a media file in place and recipients, you can click on the box here in front of Already Set Up. And then you can double check to make sure you have attached voicemails to email. You also have the option to delete message after the notifications are sent. This would be something for a very busy voicemail box that you don't ever want to have full, right? So let's say this is my support voicemail box. Let's say it's possible that voicemail box can get to 100 messages very quickly on a very busy day, no matter how many staff people I put into that group, right? Well, I would not want that to get full and get that message to my inbound caller saying, hey, the voicemail box is full. That'd be very frustrating. So in that instance, I would want to delete after notification, because that way, once that email gets sent out with the the details of the call and that voicemail attachment, then it's removed from the voicemail box so it doesn't get full. Call logs, this shows your call history on the account. A yellow arrow to the left is an outbound call. Right, green arrow to the right is a call coming into the system. and you can see what device it went to. Little fire hydrant or fire extinguisher icon here. This will create an email for you that's pre-addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's gonna have the technical details of the call. Please type in the context of why you're sending it in. We're not always going to be able to recognize the issue you're facing just from the technical details. Right. Generally speaking, you do want to see normal clearing on calls. That means as far as the system is concerned, it ended normally. Anything else beyond that, it could be problematic. You can download these individual tabs, just downloads it as a CSV file. Under custom, you can change the date range. This particular account hasn't been used very much, so I doubt there's a whole lot going on. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. If you need to go back further, you'd have to talk to our support team because we'd have to escalate that up to our engineering staff. They can go up to 18 months back. After that, the data is not available. So if you need your call log data for any kind of compliance reasons, you probably want to do this on a monthly basis. All right, download them. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these. And these are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This information is a page on our support pages. There's also a document called the phone commands cheat sheet, which has the context help also included. All right, so that's a dashboard. Next up is blacklists. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching your system. All right. Click on Edit Blacklist. If you don't have one in place, you click on Add to create a new list. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list. You need to give it a name and choose if you're blocking anonymous calls or not. That means if we're not getting valid inbound caller ID and you turn this on, that call is blocked. They get busy tone, right? If you leave it off, that means those calls will come through. And then beyond that, you click here where it says add number and put +1 area code and number for each number that you want to block from reaching your system, right? Click add to add another one. Keep doing so until you're done. And then once you're done, click on save. Click on back to settings towards the top right here. And then make sure your list is over here under the right under selected. And that might mean you have to click and drag the list over to the right. Right? And then you click update. Faxes, this is your fax manager. This allows you to see the fax activity on the account. So I'm starting on the inbound fax tab here. You can see a fax came in yesterday from this phone number. It's going to my main fax box number, the number of pages. I can download the file. If I click on the box in front of it, I can choose to remove it. Outbound faxes, choose the fax box on the account. Shows my faxes, right? Success is good. That means it went through properly. Failed on the outbound fax tab, that means we had a problem communicating with the other fax number, with the other phone number in play. And that could be anything from it was a wrong number entered. It could be we got busy tone, or like the call initially connected, but something interrupted it during transmission. Like I know back in the day when I had to deal with more faxes, I personally, the fax machine could be receiving the fax and someone could pick up the handset on the receiving end, and that would disrupt the inbound fax. Email to fax log tab shows, this is, if you see anything here, that means we had a problem with the request itself, right? So we didn't actually reach the phone number. You want to click on the little eyeball icon here, and you see that the arrow is actually no valid attachments. So this could be the person forgot to include an attachment at all, right? Or they used the wrong format, right? They used something that wasn't PDF or TIFF. Number manager, this just takes you back to your spare numbers page. Reports, this is for advanced reporting. So this would open up a new tab to take you to the advanced reporting. It would be reports.virtualpbx.com. In our show notes, you'd want to look at the advanced reporting demo. This allows you to create your own reports to get a better idea of what call activity you have going on. It's a plan-specific feature, so if you don't see this as an option, you'd want to talk to our account services team. Oops. Voicemails. This is your voicemail box manager. So you can get to any voicemail box on the account. So we can go here. So now I can see, oh, right, I got a voicemail on this date from this phone number. I can play it back. I can download it. If I put a check mark, I can move it to a different voicemail box if I want to, or change its status. All right, so as an admin, you might do this for a voicemail box that became full. Call center, this is the call queues or ACD queues. This opens up a new tab. It takes you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. You're going to want to check out in the show notes the ACD queues pro demo. That's going to show you what the queues can do. Queues and groups are related, right? Basically, queues are a more advanced version of the groups. So you have different routing options. So you have things like round robin, which will equalize that over time. Most idle, right? Whoever's been waiting the longest gets the next call that comes in. You have like least calls, right? Least amount of connected calls gets the next call that comes in. Whereas there's also least offers. Whoever had least amount of calls that were offered to them, whether they connected or not, they get the next call. Also, for queues, your staff members can log in and out of the queues, right? At the beginning or end of their shift, they can mark themselves away. So when they go to lunch, they're not being offered calls. The other big advantage of queues is if your staff member is on a call and a call comes into that queue, the queue skips them. It goes to the next available agent. All right, so it's not wasting any kind of hold time for them. Also, managers in a queue can eavesdrop on a call, whisper to your staff member, or even barge in to take over the call. Dynamic caller ID. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your staff members' VoIP phones. So you give it a name. You select a phone number on the account. So in this case, I'm selecting a 702 number. And I'm saying whenever they dial area code 702, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 702 phone number on my account. Right? So it makes it look like a local number to the people in Vegas that they're calling. Right? And my staff members don't have to do anything, right? They just pick up their VoIP phone, dial 702, the system will automatically change it. Now, let's see. I can instead create a feature code, and I recommend using star and then 4 digits, or 3 digits, excuse me. So that way you don't get in conflict with the feature codes on the feature codes page. And then, I think it's ever in use. No. Oh, I thought I had a 408 phone number on this account. Okay. Well, we'll change it to 512, or actually 802. So in this case, now what I'm saying is my staff members, if they pick up the VoIP phone, dial star 802, and then the area code and phone number they're reaching out to, the system will change their outbound caller ID to this 802 phone number. So that puts it more work on my staff members. This is a plan-specific feature. So if you're interested in this, you'd want to talk to our account services team. The monitor is another plan-specific feature. This basically shows the status of your staff members. You can go from users to devices versus who's available and who's busy. Active inbound calls up here at the top. Each one would have a blue box saying, the phone number that's coming in and who they're speaking to. And if there's any parked calls, phone number would show up here and their parking spot number. Recording manager, this opens up a new tab and takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It uses your dash login to log into that page to view your call recordings. Webhooks, this is a plane specific feature. This allows you to link Dash to other software, like Zapier, for instance. For more examples on how to make use of this, you can go into the show notes. There's the introduction to Zapier video there. You can also go developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we've done. This is some level of programming, so something to be aware of. This is not something most people will be able to pick up and just do. And then the user portal. As I mentioned, every user has their own user portal, defaults you to your voicemail tab. So you can see your messages, you can play them back, you can download them. If you put a check mark here, you can change the status. The call history, you can see the call history that's been going in and out of for your user. Faxes only works for users that have their own fax box, right? But they can see their fax history. The contact list, this shows everything on your Dash account, right? So this makes it easier for your staff members to transfer calls to other users, to groups, auto attendants, etc. It's not something they can add to themselves. So like your salespeople would not be able to add their preferred customers, for instance. Conference tab, this is for your users that have the conference bridge feature enabled. Over here on the far right is where they would enter their PIN numbers, right? They have a moderator PIN number for themselves and a participant PIN number for everyone else. So like I can do something like that if I wanted to. Here's where they choose to have people enter. When they join, are they muted? Are they deafened? As well as to play entry and exit tones. Right, and then click save. While in a conference up here, the plus icon allows you to invite other Dash users to the conference. Here you can lock a conference. Here's where you can mute everybody, unmute everybody, or end the conference call. While in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box here. So you can actually mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person if necessary. And then the settings and devices tab right here. This is where your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own. They put a little check mark here. They choose the put +1 area code and phone number. That's where they're forwarding to, right? Then they click on save. Likewise, if once that they don't need it anymore, they uncheck it and then click save again. And then on the right, they can see their devices. And that's everything. I haven't seen any questions pop up, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.